Darkcast Network, indie pods with a dark side.
Hey everyone, we are back with part 2 of the inspiration for the movie Scream. So without further ado, I'm Gina.
I'm Amber.
And this is the Gainesville Ripper. I actually didn't know until recently that Kevin Williamson, the guy who wrote the script for Scream, was inspired to write the cult classic after watching an episode of the documentary show Turning Point on ABC. The episode was about Danny Harold Rolling, known as the Gainesville Ripper. While the characters and location for Scream were created by Williamson, the madness and depravity of the killers were based on the horrific acts of a real monster. So let's dive into the true crime part of this whole thing and talk about Danny Harold Rolling. He was born on May 26th of 1954 in Shreveport, Louisiana. His father, James, was a super strict police officer who was physically and emotionally abusive toward Danny from a really young age. Claudia, Danny's mother, said James never allowed her to show love to Danny and constantly belittled him. By the time Danny was 15, his self-esteem was shattered, and James even kicked him out of the house for wearing jeans to church. I don't know anything about psychology, but I will say that I kind of looked up what this would be classified as. It's definitely some sort of like personality disorder thing where like you can't show love to people. And poor Danny definitely inherited that from his dad. So we can feel bad for little Danny and not so bad for adult Danny. And you'll see why. And because of the way he was treated, unsurprisingly, Danny was a loner. He was super quiet and liked to play guitar and jog alone. And local kids called him Rambo because of his military-style clothing. While neighbors saw him as quiet, police actually thought he was bold and intimidating. He also struggled with mental health issues, which worsened as he got older. Are we shocked to learn that a kid who was physically and emotionally abused had mental health issues?
Danny dropped out of high school in 10th grade and joined the Air Force at 17, but was discharged after 2 years when he was caught with drugs. Drugs are bad. He married O'Mather Lummis when he was 20 years old, and they had a daughter, but the marriage ended 3 years later after Danny pulled a gun on her, and O'Mather left him. Thank God. Yeah. After the divorce, Danny's behavior took a sharp turn for the worse. Throughout the 80s, Danny Rolling was in and out of prison for robbing grocery stores across Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. In 1979, he was caught robbing a Winn-Dixie and served 3 years. In 1985, he robbed a Kroger in Mississippi, evaded police by hiding in the woods overnight, but was caught the next day and sentenced to 4 years for robbery and grand theft auto. Dude's on a roll.
Really is.
While in prison, Danny was known for being obsessive about cleanliness, which some believe influenced his later crimes. In 1988, he was paroled after serving 3 years and moved back in with his parents in Shreveport. By May 1990, 35-year-old Danny was still living with his parents while on parole for armed robbery. What a winner. On May 16th, he was arrested for marijuana possession but was released with just a summons. 2 days later, Danny and his father, James, got into an argument over rolling up car windows during a rainstorm. The confrontation escalated, and after some shots were fired, Danny kicked in the door, challenged his dad, and more gunshots followed. James was shot twice, but he survived, though he was left blind in one eye, and Danny fled the scene.
Danny was charged with attempted murder after shooting his father, and a warrant was issued for his arrest. That same night, he broke into a couple's home in Shreveport, pointed a gun at them, and said, "I just shot my daddy, and I think he might be dead." That's a really weird thing to say to a couple who doesn't know you after breaking into their home. Just gonna put that out there. The husband convinced Danny to put the gun down, but Danny pulled out another gun, stole $21, and fled. The next day, police found his car abandoned at a Motel 6, but Danny had already escaped to Florida by Greyhound bus, where he began living in the woods. Meanwhile, Sonia Jane Larson, a recent high school graduate from Deerfield Beach, was preparing to attend the University of Florida in the fall. Born on January 1st, 1972, Sonia was the youngest of 3 children. She was known for being kind, quiet, and a talented artist, winning awards for her drawing and painting. She graduated with honors from Eli High School in 1990 and was involved in several school activities and had a love for working with kids, and she spent many summers at a daycare center run by her church. Sonia planned to major in early childhood education at UF with hopes of becoming a teacher, a dream that she shared with her mother, Ada, who was actually going to go to school at the same time that Sonia was to pursue her teaching degree as well. So they were going to do that together. So I thought that was really cool that her mom was going to go back to school with her and they could share that experience together. Yeah. That was really sweet. Also during the summer of 1990, Sonia met Christy Powell, another incoming student at the University of Florida, and they decided to be roommates. Christy, born on November 30th, 1972, was one of 7 children, though her family had suffered the tragic loss of her brother Michael to leukemia in 1982. Christy graduated from Episcopal High School in Jacksonville that spring, where she played volleyball and softball. She dreamed of becoming an architect with the passion for designing housing for people in need. I really do think it's so sweet how they both, even as 18-year-olds, had dreams of giving back to society instead of doing something for themselves. You don't see that much, especially not now. So it's really a shame that they didn't get a chance to fulfill that and be able to give back the way they wanted to. Since the dorms were full, Sonia and Christy found an off-campus apartment at the Williamsburg Apartments, about 8 blocks from campus. Sonia's mother was concerned about her living off campus, but the girls had no other choice. They moved in just before classes, with a third roommate set to arrive on August 26th.
On the night of August 23rd, Sonia called her boyfriend, Mick Ocasio, excited about her new apartment and making plans to visit him that weekend. However, in the early hours of August 24th, Danny Rolling, armed with a pistol and a Marine Corps K-bar knife, broke into their apartment. He first found Christy asleep on the couch, but left her and went upstairs, where he attacked Sonia in her bed. He stabbed her in the chest, taped her mouth, and despite her attempts to fight back, he continued stabbing her until she died. Rolling then returned to the living room where Christy was still sleeping. He taped her mouth and hands, cut off her clothes, raped her, and then forced her to lie face down on the floor. He stabbed her 5 times in the back, killing her as well. It had been a few days since the girls had moved in and their families couldn't reach them, so the Powells decided to check on the new roommates. On August 26th, they went to the apartment but got no response when they knocked. A maintenance worker was asked to open the door, but his manager, Betty Kernet, insisted the police be present. Once the door was opened, Betty entered and immediately saw Sonia's body in a disturbing position. She quickly left, while the maintenance worker ran downstairs in shock, vomiting after seeing the scene. Sadly, Christy's parents were right behind Betty and the maintenance worker and saw everything. Investigators found that Sonia's body had been posed, with her clothes removed, her hair spread out, and her feet on the floor. They also noticed traces of soap on one of the bodies and duct tape that had been removed, likely to hide evidence. It was determined that the intruder had broken in using a screwdriver to force open the door. The girl's third roommate arrived shortly after, an unimaginably horrifying moment for her, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's not what you want to see when you get to your apartment getting ready to start school.
No, not so much. Sonia's memorial service was held on August 30th at First Baptist Church of Pompano Beach with over 1,000 attendees. The next day, Christie's funeral took place at St. David's Episcopal Church in Jacksonville.
Less than 48 hours after killing Sonia and Christy, Danny Rolling found his next victim, Krista Lee Hoyt. Born on November 20th of 1971, Krista grew up in Miami, Florida, and was affectionately called Glowworm for her bright smile. After graduating from Newberry High School in 1990, she planned to become a police officer and worked part-time at the Alachua County Sheriff's Office while attending Santa Fe Community College as an honor student. On the night of August 25th, Danny broke into Krista's apartment, located about 2 miles from where his previous victims lived. He pried open her sliding glass door with a screwdriver. Finding that she wasn't home, he waited for her in her bedroom. When Krista returned, Danny ambushed her, taped her mouth and hands, raped her, and then fatally stabbed her in the back. He posed her body before leaving. But he realized he might have actually left his wallet behind, so he went back to the scene and decided to decapitate her for some reason. I don't understand why that was necessary. Like, just get your wallet and leave, dude.
The damage is already done. You've already been a complete douchebag. Why do you need to make it worse?
No, there's no need to mutilate her further. When Krista didn't show up for work the next day, her co-workers called the police, and officers were sent to check on her. They discovered her decapitated body, posed with her head placed on a bookshelf and her torso slumped in a sitting position. By August 28th, police linked Krista Hoyt's murder to the killings of Sonia and Christy, but they had few leads. Alachua County Sheriff's Office spokesman Spencer Mann stated, "We don't see this kind of thing in Gainesville very often. It's clear that someone who mutilates like this is a very disturbed person."
You think?
Yeah, very, very disturbed. Of course, the murders caused widespread fear in the community, with students and parents arming themselves and avoiding going out at night. I don't blame them. Krista's memorial service was held on August 31st at Newberry High School's gymnasium.
Just 2 days after killing Krista, Danny struck yet again at the Gatorwood Apartments near the University of Florida campus. His next victim was Tracy Inez Paulez, born on October 4th, 1966 in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Tracy had a brother, Scott, and a sister, Lori, and their father, George, was a stonemason. She graduated as an honor student from American High School in Miami, where she was active in sports and served as homecoming queen and class president. She had a lot going for her.
She really did.
Tracy dreamed of becoming a lawyer and worked at a law firm before attending the University of Florida, where she was a pre-law student. Tracy Paulez had been close friends with her roommate, Manny Taboada, since high school. Manny was born on September 14, 1966, to Cuban immigrant parents Gladys and Manuel. He and his brother Mario were the only children in the family. Sadly, their father passed away in 1984 from heart issues. Manny's mom, Gladys, worked as a cosmetologist. Manny was known for being spontaneous, outgoing, and charismatic, with a love for the outdoors and his Persian cat, Sasha. Persian cats are so cute. I'm a reptile person, but those furry little things are adorable.
Look, I'm deathly allergic to cats, and most of them are super mean, but yeah, Persians, adorable. I'd take some allergy meds for one of those for sure.
Manny graduated from American High School in Miami, where he played football and was president of the Thespian Club, excelling as an honor student. He dreamed of becoming an architect and was planning to study at the University of Florida in the fall. On August 27th, around 3 a.m., Danny Rolling broke into the apartment Manny shared with Tracy. He attacked Manny while he was asleep, fatally stabbing him despite Manny's efforts to fight back. Tracy, hearing the struggle, ran to check on Manny but was caught by Danny. After breaking through her door, he raped and stabbed her before posing her body. On August 31st, both Tracy and Manny were laid to rest. Tracy's funeral was held at the Miami Church of Religious Science, and Manny's funeral took place at St. Monica Catholic Church in Carroll City.
The reaction to the student murders in Gainesville was one of intense fear and anxiety, so much so that mental health experts were brought in to help people cope. Students and young adults were terrified that they would be the next target, with some even taking turns standing guard. While daytime felt safer, nighttime brought panic, and people were constantly on edge, thinking they spotted the Gainesville Ripper. Any suspicious person prompted calls to the police, leading to an average of 1,400 calls a night. In response, police increased patrols, especially in the southwest part of town. Women refused to walk alone, and many people moved in with friends for safety. Newspaper deliveries stopped, and pizza drivers took extra precautions, reporting their routes and timing to managers. People started arming themselves with anything they could: guns, bats, knives, and even bricks to feel more secure. The feeling of helplessness, like you can lock your doors and windows, but this guy is gonna get in if he wants to get in.
Clearly.
No. The flood of armed citizens in Gainesville caused additional problems for the police, as more calls were being made and law enforcement worried that an innocent person might get hurt. One local, Nene Whaley, told the Palm Beach Post, "This guy's worse than Bundy. He likes to feel blood. He's an animal." What a description.
I mean, it's not...
He likes to feel blood. Ugh. She's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
No. Parents were frantically calling the police for updates, and some even took their kids out of town. The media swarmed the story, and it quickly gained national attention with constant coverage. Freshmen at the University of Florida were allowed to transfer to other schools if they felt unsafe. By August 31st, 20 students had inquired about transferring, and about 500 of the university's 30,000 students had already left town. The school promised they wouldn't be penalized for leaving and could return later. Some students moved into dorms for extra security, and Southern Bell brought in 20 workers to install phone lines, making it easier for students to stay in touch with their families. Rumors about the Gainesville Ripper spread wildly, with some claiming he had killed up to 30 people, or that he had medical knowledge based on the precision of the wounds. There was even a rumor that one of the victims had been skinned.
There was a theory that the murders were connected to The Exorcist III, which had recently been released, but police debunked it. Interestingly, at Danny Rolling's trial, comparisons between the movie and his crimes were raised, as he had drawn some inspiration from the plot when he confessed. The Gainesville Police and Alachua County Sheriff's Office called in help from all over Florida for the investigation, with around 100 investigators working the case, including 16 profiling specialists, some of whom had worked on the Ted Bundy case. The Miami Herald described it as one of Florida's most intense manhunts in memory. Police found several similarities between the murders, including tape and soap residue, rapes, stab wounds, and the way the bodies were posed. The killer always entered through the back door, and each home was near a wooded area, making it easier for him to come and go unnoticed. They also noted that all the female victims had a similar appearance. The wooded areas caught police attention. On August 27th, the First Union National Bank of Gainesville, located a half-mile from Krista Hoyt's home, was robbed of $7,000 with a dye pack hidden in the cash. That night, an officer saw a man heading into a wooded area. By August 30th, police announced they believed one man was responsible for all 5 murders, was still likely in Gainesville, and seemed familiar with the southwest part of town where the crimes occurred.
The police released a profile suggesting the Gainesville killer may have committed previous murders or sex crimes and could have spent time in prison or mental institutions. On the right track. there. By August 31st, they had received over 1,500 tips from the public. Not long after the murders, 18-year-old Ed Humphrey was arrested for assaulting his grandmother. Police considered him a suspect because of several tips, his known habit of carrying knives, and the discovery of magazines about knives, guns, and women in his home. Ed, who had stopped taking medication for a mental health condition, spent 10 months in a mental institution but was never charged in connection with the murders. Former state attorney Rod Smith later admitted that Ed's arrest was made in desperation and was a mistake, which is really sad because you see it all the time. These people get arrested in connection with something, they're completely innocent, and then their lives are changed forever. Like
the police, because of public terror and media coverage, the police feel pressured and mistakes happen.
They do. It's just sometimes like don't give in to that. Be more sure before you change someone's life.
Probably a good MO to follow.
Yeah. In November, Florida police caught a break when investigator Don Maines met with Shreveport police. They believed the Gainesville murders were strikingly similar to the unsolved 1989 murders of the Grissom family. William Thomas "Tom" Grissom was born on September 2nd, 1934 in Illinois, was an Army veteran and an AT&T supervisor living in Shreveport at the time of his death. Known for being polite and well-respected, Tom was a great neighbor and friend and was admired by his coworkers. He had 2 children, Julie and Scott, and had been recovering from a long battle with throat cancer. He was looking forward to retirement. His daughter, Julie Ann Grissom, was born on April 24, 1965, and was studying marketing at Louisiana State University in Shreveport. She had transferred from the Baton Rouge campus and was close to graduating. Julie worked part-time at Dillard's and lived with her father to help him due to his health issues. Described as warm, kind, and beautiful, Julie had recently been engaged to attorney Hal Carter, but they decided to take a break before her death. Initially, police suspected Hal, but he was later cleared, and Danny Rolling became the prime suspect in the murders. Sean, born on October 24, 1981 in Shreveport, was the son of Scott, making him Tom's grandson and Julie's nephew. At the time of his death, Sean was a 3rd grader at Turner Elementary and was spending the weekend at his grandfather Tom's house as part of his birthday present. That hits me so hard because I have a 3rd grader. That's... On November 4th, 1989, 55-year-old Tom, 24-year-old Julie, and 8-year-old Sean were tragically murdered inside of Tom's Shreveport home. Julie's body had been posed similarly to the Gainesville victims, with tape residue found on her and vinegar, rather than soap, used to clean her. On November 6th, Sean's mother called the police after being unable to contact Tom or Julie, and Sean hadn't shown up at school. Police asked neighbors to check Tom's house, and when they opened the utility room door, they saw a body and quickly left to notify authorities.
When police arrived at Tom Grissom's home, they found his body slumped against the utility room door, stabbed multiple times in the back and chest. Sean was discovered face down in the family room with a single stab wound through his back and chest, likely attacked while watching TV. Julie was found naked and partially hanging off of a bed, stabbed at least 3 times in the back, but positioned face up. Her body had been cleaned with vinegar. There were no signs of forced entry or robbery, though some evidence of a struggle was present. Police estimated the murders took place between 6 and 8 p.m. on November 4th. The Shreveport community was deeply shaken by the murders, much like Gainesville would be later. Detective Don Maines reviewed the Grissom case and noticed striking similarities to the Gainesville murders. As we had said, Julie's body was posed like the Gainesville victims. Tape residue was found, her body was cleaned, and she resembled the Gainesville victims, petite and brunette. This connection was a major breakthrough in the investigation. In 1990, DNA testing wasn't very advanced, but police were able to determine blood types from semen at the crime scenes. The perpetrator in the Gainesville murders had type B blood, while Ed Humphrey had type A. In the Grissom murders, they also found type B blood, further linking the two cases.
Shortly after Detective Maines went to Shreveport, a woman named Cindy Juricic called the police with a tip. Cindy knew Danny Rolling and remembered that he had once said he wanted to move somewhere with beautiful girls and just watch them all day. Okay, creep. A few months after the Grissom murders, Danny told Cindy's then husband that he had a problem and confessed, "I like to stick knives into people." Wouldn't that be a little bit of a red flag?
Not a little bit. That's a giant red flag.
That's a giant flaming
banner of a
yes.
warning. Yeah.
At the time, Cindy didn't take the comments seriously, but after hearing about the college murders, she wondered if there was a connection. Haunted by the thought, she eventually reported it in November. Police soon discovered that Danny had lived just 10 minutes away from the Grissom house, making him a super strong suspect. When police investigated Danny Rolling, they found he had prior convictions for armed robbery and suspected he might be linked to that recent bank robbery in Gainesville that he definitely committed. The morning after the robbery, police spotted Danny entering the woods near the University of Florida, where he had been living in a tent. After he fled, a K-9 unit led officers to his campsite, where they found that red dye-stained money from the robbery, along with a gun, duct tape, a ski mask, and a screwdriver. This evidence wasn't initially connected to the student murder since no gun was used in those crimes. Danny later claimed the police entered his tent without a warrant, but the court ruled that the search was justified due to concerns about officers' safety. After nearly being caught, Danny stole a car and fled to Tampa, where he robbed a grocery store and burglarized 3 apartments, leaving a banana peel as his calling card. I mean, he is a clown. A banana peel checks out. Just saying. Meanwhile, Gainesville police reviewed the evidence from his campsite, including cassette tapes. On the tapes, Danny talked and sang about being a killer and mentioned his full name, confirming his identity. Detective Maines later admitted that if they had listened to the tapes sooner, they might have caught Danny months earlier.
After hearing Danny's name on the cassette tape, police learned he was already in custody in Marion County for a grocery store robbery he committed just days after Tracy and Manny's bodies were found. He was arrested on September 7th for robbing a Winn-Dixie in Ocala at gunpoint. While in jail, Danny admitted to being an alcoholic and drug addict and displayed erratic behavior, including smashing a toilet in his cell. Gross. Psychiatrists later revealed he had attempted suicide and spent time in a mental hospital in 1979. Police tested Danny's blood and found it was, guess what? Type B, linking him to the Gainesville murders. On November 15, 1991, he was indicted for the murders of Sonia Larson, Christy Powell, Krista Hoyt, Manuel Taboada, and Tracy Paulez, along with additional charges of sexual battery and armed burglary. Danny pleaded not guilty, with a trial set for February 1994. In the meantime, he was convicted of federal robbery charges for a prior bank robbery. While awaiting trial at Florida State Prison, Danny befriended fellow inmate Bobby Lewis, who hoped to gain from Danny's confessions about the Gainesville murders. Bobby thought he could use the information to make a deal or get a reduced sentence. Meanwhile, journalist Sandra London, known for writing about serial killers, began corresponding with Danny, leading to a book collaboration and, even a marriage proposal. They were later sued under the Son of Sam law, which prevents criminals from profiting from the publicity of their crimes. Danny and Sandra lost the lawsuit, boo-hoo, and $20,000 in proceeds.
It makes me want to do a deep dive into women who fall for convicted murderers, or people on trial for murder. Like, you're not going to change him. You can't change him. You can't make men pick up their socks and put them in the dirty clothes. You're not going to make a man stop being a murderer. It's just not going to happen.
Between July and December 1992, Bobby met with the task force several times, trying to use Danny's confessions, but the police made it clear no deals were on the table. Danny was sent to a mental health facility but returned to prison in December 1992, where Bobby continued to press him for details. In January 1993, Danny offered to talk to the task force about the murders, but the conversation fell apart when the task force refused his condition to release Bobby for helping. Bobby continued trying to negotiate with officials, but they were instructed to only listen and tape any meetings he initiated. Bobby still kept trying to make a deal with the state, and on January 31st, an interview was set up where Danny spoke for himself. Another interview followed on February 4th, with Bobby acting as Danny's mouthpiece and Danny confirming what Bobby said. Through these interviews, police learned that Danny went back to Krista Hoyt's house after her murder to retrieve his wallet and decided to decapitate her. They also learned that he fought with Manny Tabawada, and Tracy Paulez witnessed the commotion before trying to escape. Danny admitted he acted alone, and Ed Humphrey wasn't involved.
Danny talked about his dark personalities, including Enad and Gemini, who he claimed was responsible for the murders. He mentioned wanting to kill one person for each year he spent in prison and seeking fame. This guy, man. Despite confessing to the student murders, Danny refused to admit to the Grissom killings. On the first day of his trial, February 15th of 1994, Danny unexpectedly changed his plea to guilty. He addressed the court, saying he had been running from things his whole life, but couldn't run from this. The penalty phase began on February 16th to decide whether he should get life in prison or the death penalty. Jury selection took 3 weeks to ensure impartiality. Although Danny initially didn't request a change of venue, he eventually did during jury selection, realizing everyone had heard of the case. However, the judge denied the request because it was too late, though he had already allowed Danny extra challenges for picking jurors. The jury, made up of 9 women and 3 men, heard the penalty phase starting on March 7th, 1994. The prosecution argued that Danny committed the murders because he enjoyed it and posed the bodies to shock police. The defense focused on Danny's abusive upbringing, with his mother testifying about his father's mistreatment. I completely agree that this is a nature versus nurture situation here, and I'm sure his upbringing did have something to do with how he turned out, but that does not
Make it okay.
Or explain why he did it and posed the bodies and acted the way you don't do that because of an abusive upbringing. You do that because you like it.
Because you want to.
You want the attention. Christy Powell's friend Allison felt the defense's arguments were a slap in the face. Yeah, as it seemed like they were trying to justify the murders. The defense focused heavily on Danny's mental health, with 3 psychiatrists testifying that while he was mentally ill, he was still sane. They diagnosed him with borderline personality disorder, linking his childhood abuse to his violent behavior. Like we mentioned earlier, Danny believed he had alternate personalities like Gemini, but the experts agreed he didn't actually suffer from multiple personalities. So it's just his way of explaining away what he did. Oh, that wasn't me. That was my other personality. We've heard this before.
Yep.
Dr. Krupp also testified that Danny had a sexual disorder, voyeurism, that began in his teens and had become a compulsion. Danny had trouble maintaining relationships and once described the most terrifying death as being attacked at night with a knife, knowing you were going to die. So that's what he did to his victims, was the exact thing that he said was the most terrifying way to die. That is so fucked up.
The crime scene photos were so disturbing that the state considered offering counseling to the jurors. One juror said the photos were so horrific they couldn't sleep for 3 days. On March 24th, the jury unanimously recommended the death penalty for each murder. Danny reacted by slightly nodding as the verdict was read, while his fiancée, Sandra London, blew him a kiss. On April 20th, Judge Stan Morris sentenced Danny to death for each of the murders and gave him life sentences for the other charges. The judge found 4 aggravating factors, including Danny's past violent felony and the cruel, premeditated nature of the crimes. He also acknowledged Danny's emotional immaturity and mental disturbance as mitigating factors, along with his abusive upbringing, cooperation with authorities, and remorse. After the sentencing, Manny Taboada's brother Mario shouted at Danny, "You're going down in 5. Our children's names will be remembered over him." Hear, hear. Mario later explained that he wanted to have the last word because serial killers like to feel in control, and that is so true. Yeah. It's like Danny saying that his worst fear was being attacked at night, so he took control by inflicting that on other people.
Absolutely.
Fucker. Sorry. Okay.
Danny was never charged with the Grissom family murders, though the case was closed in 1994, with police convinced he was responsible. In total, the investigation involved over 200 investigators, 6,920 reports, and $6.3 million in costs. The fact that they had to spend so much money on this piece of shit. Mm-hmm. Danny appealed his death sentence on several grounds, including the denial of his request for a change of venue, the suppression of his statements and physical evidence from his tent, and whether Sonia Larson's murder was especially cruel. Yes, it was especially cruel. On March 20th, 1997, the Florida Supreme Court denied his appeal, stating that the jury was impartial, the statements and evidence were lawfully attained, and Sonia's murder was indeed heinous and cruel. Any murder is heinous and cruel. You can't argue that. Danny appealed again, claiming ineffective counsel for not requesting a venue change earlier, but the Florida Supreme Court denied it in 2002. He also appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals, which upheld the decision in 2006. I do want to say this whole, I'm going to keep requesting a venue change kind of reminds me of Brian Koberger, because he keeps trying to request a venue change. And it's like, your case, what you're on trial for is so well known. It doesn't matter where you go, buddy.
Yep.
You are fucked as you should be. It doesn't matter. Just saying. On September 22nd, 2006, Florida Governor Jeb Bush signed Danny's death warrant. After filing for post-conviction relief, the Florida Supreme Court upheld the denial, and his execution was scheduled for October 25th, 2006.
That's quick.
It's a quick turnaround. Yeah. Good.
On October 25th, 2006, Danny was executed at Florida State Prison near Rayford. In the hours leading up to his execution, he remained calm and cooperative, declining the relaxation medication offered to him. During the day, he spent time with his younger brother Kevin and 2 spiritual advisors. Just before the execution, Danny handed a note to a minister confessing to the Grissom family murders. He said he wanted to clear Julie Grissom's fiancé, who had been a suspect, and show his regret to the family. I'm not going to read what this douchebag wrote in his note. It's a whole bunch of showboating bull. It's bullshit.
Not.
It's bullshit.
The good point is that he did confess to the murders and said that he wants to clear Hal Carter's name. So at least he did that.
He did something in ridiculous way, but at least he did it.
Yeah.
For his last meal, Danny had lobster tail, butterfly shrimp, a baked potato, strawberry cheesecake, and sweet tea. Instead of giving final words, Danny sang a gospel hymn. His microphone was turned off at 6:01 p.m., and he was pronounced dead at 6:13 p.m. The victims' families were present at the time of his execution. Many of them said that while they were glad he was gone, his death would never make up for what he took from them. It's true. I mean, it's just at least he's no longer around to hurt anybody else's family.
That's really the only good thing.
Only thing.
That you can take from this. And at least he didn't do it for any longer.
Yeah.
Than he did.
Did it for long enough, but at least it didn't go on longer.
At least they caught him relatively quickly and he didn't have time to hurt anybody else.
I'm still impressed with that turnaround time, man.
I know. He needed to be gone, though. So, yeah, he was obviously a very fucked up individual who did a lot of horrible things. And he did play a pretty big role in inspiring Scream. All of these brutal murders in Gainesville set the stage for a lot of elements in the film. So, let's break that down. First off, the setting. Rowling targeted young college students in Gainesville, a small college town, which definitely mirrors the vibe of Scream. In the movie, the fictional town of Woodsboro is a quiet, suburban place where high school and college-age students become the killer's main targets. It creates that same sense of fear in what's supposed to be a safe place. Then there's the home invasions. Danny Rowling broke into his victims' homes, attacking them when they were at their most vulnerable. Scream takes that idea and runs with it. The killer stalks and taunts his victims over the phone before entering their homes to attack. It's that fear of being hunted in your own space. And it's movies like that. That's why movies like that scare me more than anything else. Because it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's way more set in reality than a paranormal film is.
Right.
To me, anyway. And Scream, obviously, they make it funny and lighthearted, and so it kind of takes that edge off, but it doesn't change the fact that this is something that could really happen.
Legitimately happen, yep.
Absolutely.
Rowling also committed multiple murders in a short period, which caused panic in Gainesville. Scream totally mimics that, with the killer striking repeatedly in quick succession, leaving the town terrified and on edge. It's like the scene when they're going to the store to get stuff for the party. There's nobody freaking around.
No, and that's the middle of the day.
Yeah, that was not like they were just released out of school and bam. Everyone's like, nope, I'm out.
Home behind locked doors.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Absolutely. As you should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another direct influence is the weapon. Rowling used a knife to murder his victims, which is something we see in Scream as well. The iconic Ghostface killer also uses a knife as his weapon of choice, making that a clear connection to the real-life case. The Gainesville Ripper murders were sensationalized in the media, just like in Scream. In the movie, Gail Weathers, the ambitious reporter, highlights how the killings became a media circus, just like the national attention that followed the Gainesville Ripper case. Like, yeah.
People love sensationalized stuff like this, which is gross. And that's a lot of the issues around true crime, right? And why we try to be more ethical about the way we tell these stories. But yeah, just like you saw in Scream, the next day after Casey and Steve were killed, it's just media everywhere.
Media frenzy. Yep.
Yes. Yeah,
Linda,
like you can't
Linda Blair in your face asking how does it feel to,
It doesn't feel great, Linda Blair. doesn't feel great. And lastly, there's the psychological element. Rowling claims that he had multiple personalities, with one of them being responsible for the killings. While Scream doesn't directly dive into that, it does focus on the twisted psychology behind the killers and their motives. It taps into that eerie, what's going on in their heads vibe that's so intriguing in the Rowling case. It's like, what? Like, what is going on in your head to make you think that acting in this way is at all like okay or acceptable, or it's just like, what has snapped? What has snapped in there? Just like
clear disconnect.
Yeah, just like Billy's motive obviously was, his mom leaving because of Sydney's mom and his dad's infidelity. But there had to have been something else going on in there, because a sane person wouldn't snap and decide to go on a killing spree and then like kill somebody's mom and all these other people, because no.
And also, I feel like they drew inspiration from Bobby for the dynamic between Billy and Stu.
Absolutely. Yeah, Stu was peer pressure. He was just in on it to like be part of the game, just like Bobby thinking that he could use it to his advantage to, get out of jail early or get some of that media attention.
Yep.
It's the same thing. He's looking at it as his claim to fame, which is gross. Just really gross. Kevin Williamson, the writer of Scream, has even said that the fear surrounding the Gainesville Ripper case was part of the inspiration behind the movie's story, especially the idea of a serial killer going after young people in this seemingly safe small town. And he pulled it off, but I do appreciate that they at least put a little bit of humor and lightness into it.
That's why I like it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to have that humor involved, or that's one of the reasons. I mean, well, specifically Stu and his crackhead tendencies.
Yeah.
But
Tatum
and her
so
quips.
Sad. Oh, I know. It's so, and it's very your humor too.
Very. It's this
sarcasm.
Very fluent in sarcasm. It's shaped my personality somewhat, I'm not going to lie, but not in like a crazy, I like to stick knives in people way.
No, not in a Danny Rowling kind of way. I think I like it because I'm very drawn to people who are sarcastic and clever in their humor, because I am not that person. And so I envy people who are like that, which is why I think like we are friends and I am married to the person I'm married to.
Yeah. That one makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because it is entertaining and fun, and I wish I could be more like you, but that's fine. Well, there it is. The very, very, very fucked up story of Danny Rowling, the Gainesville Ripper, and the inspiration behind our favorite 90s slasher, Scream. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, please follow, like, subscribe, all the things. We are on Apple Podcasts as a subscription, so you can subscribe and skip all the ads on Apple Podcasts now to listen to us. We also have Patreon back up and running, so that's another way to subscribe if you want to be able to skip those ads and just listen, because that's definitely how I prefer to listen to my podcasts.
I don't
when
do ads.
Possible. No, we don't do ads, so you shouldn't either. Go subscribe. It's like $5 a month, and you get to listen to us without all those really annoying interruptions. So if you feel like it, feel free.
Stay tuned for next week.
Oh, yeah.
We kicked off Wicked Wednesday with a fun little paranormal movie, and next week we're bringing some paranormal back with a movie I hadn't actually seen until this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked it.
She did like it.
Probably not for... I probably didn't react the way that you anticipated I would.
No, not at all. Because that movie, like I said, it scared the crap out of me. The first time I saw it, I didn't sleep for a week. Like, I could not be in my house at night with the lights off.
I had you pause it and rewind, and I was sitting there like, yes!
Yes, I want to watch that again. I was like,
do it again. Okay.
Well,
I'm going to have trauma for this, Amber. Thanks.
I'm scared. You're scaring me. Yeah.
I'm excited for next week, so Stay tuned. Make sure you come back to hear us
Yes.
blather on about that.
Yes. So until next time, stay safe.
And make good choices. Bye.
Bye.